So, Rick, how did God call you to be a missionary?
Well, I have to say that if you can hear me, right? The rain has been so loud. Actually, the rain, we just got through a little bit of rain right now, and it gets loud because we have slats for our windows. We don't have sliders. And so it's actually just leaving. So as long as everybody can hear me. It actually started back when I was in foster homes. And I had met a fella in a van who was driving by our street, and he asked if we wanted to go to a kids program. And my youngest brother, who was, he would have been 4 at the time, was very happy to go. The rest of us, we were just having too much fun hanging around the street, so we didn't go. So he went to this Jesus and Me program, Jan Time, after school program, and he came back after the program all excited, happy, and we saw that, and we were just sort of disappointed we didn't go. So the next week, we all waited on the side of the road for this fella to show up again. Well, what was happening was this was a Bible college student who was doing his work at missionaries were doing teaching Bible to the kids on the street. And he just picked us up and took us to the program, and we started learning about the Bible. These missionaries were actually from the U.S., Joliet, Illinois, and they were printing Bibles to go behind the Iron Curtain. And we all know about the smuggling of the Bibles in that time, and they were being printed out of Mississauga. And so we joined their program of teaching Bible to the kids of the street. And that really got me interested in learning about Christ, that there is a difference in life than what I was facing at the time in foster homes and not knowing, without knowing your parents at the time and stuff like that. Well, it was a few years later, my father got us back, almost all of us. But this family, these missionaries never left us. They kept following us wherever we moved to, picked us up and brought us to the programs, and even did church with us. And all of that for, well, to this day, she turned 94 just about a week ago, the missionary lady. So she's been a real connection to my life, and just the drive to giving the message of Christ to others. So from that time, about, I would have been 13 at that time. It was just a journey from there, that my life was not just a typical 9-to-5 job in the steel plant, which it was, but it was more than that. It was actually giving the message of Christ to wherever I was at the time. So that really put me into this idea to be a missionary. And my wife, who at the time we met at a Bible camp, winter retreat, she wasn't my wife then. She was just a friend. It took 5 years to convince her that she should be my wife. But we had always thought about missions, and her mother was a missionary with the Sunday school mission, with the the Sunday school Christian mission, where they taught Bible in schools in Ontario, and she was the head of the Kingston area. And so she grew up as a missionary kid in Ontario. And so when we got married, it was always a thought one day we would be involved in full-time, long-term mission work, crossing cultures. And so that actually became a fruition later in life. We were quite involved in Sunday school, quite involved in our church, been involved in leadership capacities, teaching capacities. And it was when I had left the steel plant in 2006 that missions became a real practical venture, traveling short-term opportunities with our church. As I had left the steel company, so I was available to visit each of our missionary families that our church was supporting. I belonged to Philpott Memorial Church in Hamilton, and we were supporting 26 missionaries at the time. And so I was involved in leading teams to visit our missionaries. And that was quite an experience. So that development of leading teams and going to different countries around the world, SIM asked me to join them in mobilizing people to be involved in missions. And I actually turned them down. I wasn't really focusing on a one mission organization, but being involved in mission as God was leading me. And I wasn't quite ready to settle down in one mission organization. And so I'd been involved in others. I mean, Galcom, I was still volunteering a little bit there. just seeing things and involved in missions. And then it was the next year they asked me again, and I actually turned them down again. And it wasn't until the 6 months after that that I actually joined SIM in 2009 as the Ontario Regional Director, in which I was involved in mobilizing, discussing with churches, working with other mission organizations, and what God was calling people to do, or how to do, or just to pray, to be involved in the call to give the message of hope to others. So that was in 2009, and 5 years involved with that moved me to an opportunity to come to Nigeria to visit Jos, to visit Egbe, and just to see the revitalization of the hospital had become a project, and they wanted me involved as a Canadian director to help them. And so that's how both Martha and I got involved with that. It actually wasn't so easy. Every mission trip I went on, I'd come home excited and say, "Oh, Martha, this is a place to go. This is where we should be going." And she'd be going, "Oh, I'm not quite sure yet," and sort of thing. And so about 5 or 6 times of coming home and saying, "This is where we ought to go," and not getting a positive answer. When I went to Nigeria, I didn't come home saying anything. I just kept my mouth quiet and tried to hold that back. And then she was the one that pondered the next day saying, "Maybe we should look at Nigeria." So then it became a more positive note that both of us were being called here. So that's how we ended up coming to Egbe, Nigeria, which is where we are even to this day.
So anyway, I the next question that I have written down, which you kind of answered, but I'll say it anyway, just then you can repeat it. What country are you serving in, and how long have you been there? And you can also combine that with what does your ministry involve? I think we'll just put them all three together, all three kind of thoughts together.
Okay, as I mentioned, Nigeria, and Egbe is a town in Nigeria, sort of the middle belt. They call it the North years ago. So who's my Egbe person there? Lenora, you would have been in the North then at that time when you were there in the 70s. So it's called the Middle Belt now, and it's divided into 3 sort of regions. But Egbe is still around. Dr. Campion from St. Catharines, Ontario, was the first medical doctor who actually built the hospital with Howard Dowdell, who was an engineer from Toronto. And so they'd been involved in here for a lot of years in developing the school, which was Titcomb College, and the hospital and the nursing training facility since 1952. And so it was first established then. So it had come to a point that it needed revitalizing. I'd spent 30 years in the Stelco steel company as a maintenance, as a welder by trade, but then learned all the trades as a maintenance manager in various departments. And so leaving that role, they were searching for a maintenance manager for the hospital revitalization. And it just seemed like a perfect fit, what they required for that area. And so we came for a 3-month trial. 3 months we came, Martha and I together, and she came as Rick's wife. And it was interesting. If you know Martha, that may have not been the title she wanted to be called. She's well gifted herself. So she's a musician, as you heard, and she teaches music for many years. And she came here that on the visa, and I was involved in tearing down the old OPD and relocating each department in temporary wards so that we could rebuild the OPD 3 times its original size. And so that was my work, and it was quite involved. And Martha ended up, pastors asked her to teach their children how to play instruments and how to read music. So she started in our own home playing music, teaching music to some of the pastors' children, and 2 days a week in one of the churches in their youth program. So she would be teaching music. And so that's how we ended up cementing our relationship here in Egbe, was through the maintenance of the project and music with Martha, with the churches. And so then we came back. I had then left my role in SIM in 2013, and we came back full time in 2014. So we've been here in Egbe since 2014. Now, as you know about Nigeria, it's quite a diversified language country. Over 300, some will say 350 languages, including dialects, you get up to almost 500 languages in the country with 200 million people, the size of Ontario. It's actually a little bit smaller than the size of Ontario. And so it may seem congested, but there's a lot of places that there's a lot of bush. And the cities are very congested, as you know. Lagos is congested, Abuja is congested, Kano, one of the oldest cities, is congested and very busy. But the rest of it has its places. You know, the fact that it has a lot of issues here as far as kidnapping, killings, tribal issues, religious issues. So there's a number of things that we need to be concerned about, but yet it doesn't stop us from giving the message of Christ to people. So what does that mean about my own ministry? As my maintenance work continued, I ended up meeting people in the hospital that were not of the tribe of this area. This area is a Yagba Yoruba culture. So they speak Yoruba language here in Egbe. But we're getting a lot of people who are moving around from all parts of Nigeria. And so we'll get a mix of Tiv language, the Tiv people, T-I-V. We'll get a mixture of Cambry, Bassa, Bagi, these languages that are in more located in specific areas of the country, but now are moving around. So there's three major languages. They say there's Hausa, Fulfulde, there's Yoruba, and Igbo are the three major languages in this country, but yet all these other languages. So what I was seeing was different looking people coming, colorful clothing, and sitting under the mango tree while they were waiting at the hospital while the patient was there. And so I'd be asking, who are these people? They're not Yoruba. They were Fulfulde or Fulani people, and they speak a totally different language. And also they do speak Hausa. There's their own language, and Hausa is what they speak. And I said, so I asked questions about them. And then I started doing some research, and they're 99% Islamic. And so they're very unreached people. And if you look at the Joshua Project, it tells you it's one of the 100 unreached people groups in the world. And so that became an interest of mine. So how do we reach these Islamic people for full day, which are also herdsmen? They look after cattle, sheep, and goats, and they move in the country north and south, east and west, and they're not originally from Nigeria. And yet the population is estimated almost 30 million of them live in Nigeria. And so there's about 42 million in West Africa. So the rest of them cover even up to Senegal and other parts of West Africa, but a huge amount in Nigeria. There is a Fulani ministry SIM is involved with in Burkina Faso and Benin. There's actually a Bible school in that location for the Fulfulde people, but it doesn't reach people here. And so we have not yet, I've not heard of, there's smaller Bible training facilities in Nigeria, but there's no official Bible college for Fulfulde. There's no official church for Fulfulde speaking people. They may be in a Hausa church, they may be in a Yoruba church, but they don't have their own dialect as a church. So they're relatively, again, unreached and unrecognized in the Christian circles. So it became a real heart to look at these people and what can we do. Also, the Hausa people have been moving here too. And SIM has had a real heart to reach Hausa people in the north. They live mostly in the north, and they've been a hard people to reach for many years, but they're really a growing Christian community in the Hausa. But yet, because they're mixed marriages in the north between the Hausa and Fulani, they're still an unreached people group because of their population. So that's where my ministry has now moved from maintenance to ministry in the bush. I actually don't own a vehicle, I own a motorcycle, and I ride in the bush all the time. And I go to these bush camps, which many of them are grass huts, no electricity, no water, and many people living in rows of grass huts. Some of them now have some mud blocks they're building, and some are even using cement blocks as they settle more than they have traditionally. Again, these people are considered a nomadic or semi-nomadic people, so they move around. A lot of times they stay 3 years in one location and then they move. The reason 3 years, I believe, is because the grass of the roof of their huts lasts only 3 years. So either put a new roof on or you move to a new location. And a lot of them will move to a new location. They move with their cows, and typically the young boys or young men will herd the cows and the sheep, and they'll go off for months at a time, or will just completely move back and forth all the time. A number of them are semi-settled, so meaning they're finding locations which they're being welcomed, and they're living there for 10 years, 20 years. Even one group that I know now has been in a location for more than 25 years. They have close to, I think it was 30 huts in their community. So they live in as a relative community where there's family, aunts, uncles. We would call aunts, uncles. They don't brothers, sisters, or then sometimes some people want to be friends to live close to them, but they live in clusters, and that's the type of clusters they live in. And I call that camps, and a lot of people use that term. So what's become a very interesting movement in the last 4 years is the Fulani have been moving to this area of Nigeria, the Middle Belt. It's become religious issues in the north. It's not necessarily a religious issue in our area. Even though they're resistant to the gospel, they haven't been fighting against Christians necessarily here. But their cows, they'll let them eat in farmers' fields, you know, to the Christians. In particular, they'll raid their corn crops, they call it maize, their rice crops, their cassava crops, and wipe out townspeople. And this year has been one of the worst for that. A lot of people have been investing in crops, and the cows, because so many Fulani have moved in this area, the cows have been eating everyone's crops, and people are actually starving. They just don't have food. So it's becoming another issue. So how does this affect the ministry now that I'm doing? So my title got changed. SIM changed my title from maintenance involvement in Egby Hospital to community and outreach development. So I still am involved in the community and how we can develop the community and our relationships with the community, and even how some of the people can have work. But outreach is the biggest part of my ministry. And that's going out to the bush, going out to the camps. For the first few years, it's been pretty much myself and one other person. But just recently, in the last 3 months, I've been able to connect with the national church that SIM's connected with. They have a mission component. They have about 2,700 missionaries, nationals, working all through Nigeria, other parts of West Africa, and even Canada and US. They have Nigerian missionaries that are around. So I have been able to get 4 of them to join me in working with the Fulani and Hausa people in this region. Why to be able to do that is the fact that I'm seeing in a 30-kilometer radius over 200 Fulani camps in our area. And so it's just amazing how many Fulani camps are in this area now. And Lenora, you would have thought that was just incredible to think that that many Fulani are in this region. And then also the Hausa are moving in, and Hausa are known for farming. So actually the Yoruba like the Hausa being here because they hire them to farm for them. The Yoruba are getting away from farming to be middlemen, you know, selling goods. And so they hire the Hausa to farm. But a lot of those Hausa are now living here because the land is fertile more than the north. The north, you have to buy a lot of fertilizer and everything. And here, the land is so fertile, all they need is just to get sprayed to kill the bugs, but everything grows. So they're actually staying here and developing this area for their own. Where does that move me? Well, knowing this, and in my visits to the bush, I found that education is lacking. So many people can't read or write. And so that is a real problem in this area, in a lot of part of Nigeria. The population rate, I think, is over 60% can't read or write in Nigeria. And so it's huge. What does that mean? It means the things, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, things that Galcom offers in getting the word out, the Bible out, is very valuable here because they like to hear, they want to listen. So having a solar-powered MP3 that speaks the Bible is just so valuable here, and people are just flocking for it. So I'll step back again. So what I've also been able to do in the last 2.5 years is develop education points, hiring some national teachers who've been trained by the Nigerian trainers and have certificates that are actually going out to the bush and teaching English. So they're teaching how to read and how to write English. So that started in one camp that I was involved with actually 3.5 years ago. It was piggybacking off of what someone else started. And then I involved a small school setting, 40 students in a Fulani camp, a rather large Fulani camp. And we were doing that until 2 years ago. Of course, COVID came, that slowed down stuff. And the camp was not as serious. So we removed the 2 teachers from that school and we actually closed that school. We haven't started that school up again because that last year there was only about 9 students coming, and to send 2 teachers 17 kilometers every day was not really giving a good value for what we were doing. But we moved to another location 9 kilometers away in a big town, in a town where there's a huge population of Hausa and Fulani. So we built a school there, a 2-room schoolhouse. Our first year registration was 75 children. The next day was another 30. The next day was another 30. So we ended up having more than 150 children our first year at this school who had never been to school before. Various ages up to 12, 14, 16 years old, and they were ready to learn any English we could teach them. And so I had 3 teachers with that many students for my first year. Realized we had to have another teacher, so we hired another one, a 4th teacher, moved our other 2 teachers, so we have 6 teachers now at that school. This year, because it's continuing to grow, we added another building, so we put another building up, and our new intake, the last week of September, we promised we would bring new children in because we had this long queue, they called it a list of children waiting to come to school. We have 120 new intakes this past week for the school. So we have over 200 children that have never been to school before are now coming to the school. The percentage of Fulani are about 40%. The percentage of Hausa now have increased quite a bit. So we have a higher percentage, 50% or greater of Hausa children who are now going to the school. The school is free. My light come on. The school is free, and we sponsor the teachers. So I raise funds for the teachers and for the construction and for running the school, but the children come free. Fortunately, this year, we've asked the parents to contribute. And so they're buying the books for their children, they're buying the pencils for their children, and they've requested that they get uniforms. So they're actually going to buy their own uniform. That ministry in education has really cemented our relationship with them. They've even telling their imams and teachers, no, we're going to the Western education school. We're going to the school that the Christian is doing. And so they're telling their imams that they're not listening to them, that because they were saying, don't go, don't go, don't go. And so because of what they're seeing, we had a celebration the 3rd week of August of the children, and we had a spelling bee. And I was just amazed because the teacher that was running the spelling bee said, call out a word. So they would ask anyone to call out a word, and these children spelled the word. It wasn't preempted. It was just any word that was given out. So Martha gave them a word and they spelled it. And so it was interesting that they could spell the words. And being in school for 1.5 years, this was an incredible accomplishment of English learning. Now, one of the things you'll say, well, where does the Bible come in? That comes in our visiting of the camps. Our evangelists and missionaries that have joined me now, we go to the camps, we show the Jesus film, we hand out MP3s, solar-powered MP3s of their language, and then we visit them, and we were able to connect that way. So the school has a little bit of a separation of preaching the gospel. Preaching of the gospel comes as we visit each camp, and they're more than welcoming us to do that. So that's how our ministry develops. What else does the ministry involve is the hospital. We have a great bridge between the hospital and the outreach. We meet so many people sick in the bush, so many people with diseases that are afraid to come to the hospital. One of the reputations that are said is the hospital, if you have something wrong with your leg or arm, to cut your legs off. So, and there's this sort of stuff. So we're trying to break that sort of concept, which isn't true, but it's just what they're afraid of. or they'll keep you there. They'll keep your children. They won't release you. And so we've been able to work with them. We have a benevolent fund at the hospital to help pay for some of the costs of the work that gets done. So I'll give you one story of a particular situation. I'm working in this one camp. We just put water there. I've had visitors from Joss on the north, some missionaries, some short-term missionaries have come to Egby just to see what it's like here for 2 weeks. And we go out to the bush and we go to these camps, and some of them are nurses. So it really helps that relationship with medical and nurses. And so we've been going out visiting this one camp, and this girl had an infection in her right leg so bad that they went to just a local clinic and they shaved her flesh off her leg, just from the knee down to the ankle. And I'm not going to show you pictures of that, but they just removed all the flesh, the skin, and just left a little, just red, you know. And she had to sit there for almost 6 months, laying on a bench in this little hut, trying to keep it clean. And so when we showed up, because she was released and put back into her camp, and it cost her father all his cows to look after this daughter. And so we wanted to bring her to the hospital, and they refused because he had no money, because he'd already lost his cows for what they did before, and she's no better. She's struggling. She can't walk. She's suffering. She's having, you know, trying to keep it clean, bleaching her leg all the time to keep it clean because that's all they had. So we had promised that God would take care of it if he would let her come to the hospital. So we were able to work with our benevolent fund. She spent 3 months here with skin grafts. We had a specialist come in August, late July, August, who is a specialist in the US for skin grafting. So he did wonderful work on her leg and doing a skin graft. He was here for 3 weeks. And then in our follow-up, we have a surgeon here who's from the PACS program, which is Pan-African Doctors or Medical Association. So he's a part of that. He's here for a number of years, and he continued watching that skin grafting because he can also skin graft. And she was just released. And it's been a testimony to all the camps around there, because they thought he would lose everything and he should have just put her in the bush, let her go. But she's back home now. She's walking with a bit of a limp, and the flesh is growing back, and she doesn't have to worry about infection so much now, and she has a smile on her face. And so every time we see her, she's smiling now all the time. So the medical also has a bridge to relationship of giving the gospel and love to the people.
How old was the girl?
She would have been 14, 14 to 15. She's wedding age.
Okay. Oh dear. I noticed that Don had a question, and he was asking, are the schools for boy and girls? Are there schools for boys and girls, or are they all together in the school?
It's co-ed. It's co-ed, and surprisingly, we have a fair number of boys in this school, which typically isn't normal for Fulani. The boys are out in the bush with the cows, but we have a fair number of boys. They love the soccer ball, which they call football, and which I just reminded myself I have to take 1 or 2 back to the school because some of the boys aren't coming because they can't play football. Maybe
that's a good moment to we can go ahead and say, how are you able to use the Galcom technology to further your ministry? But you have intertwined that kind of through all of the things you're talking about.
So yeah, I'll give you one story. I said at Philpott Church one time, Sunday morning service they gave me, but it was just so amazing. I was with one of the national missionaries with me, and we were visiting a camp, and he had promised that he would give them another pocket Jesus, they call it, or talking Bible, pocket Jesus. And so he had promised these ladies that when he came back the next time, he would bring one. So these ladies happened to be beside a canal. Their camp was close to a canal where they washed their clothes, washed their pants, you know, and everything is in the canal. Well, they saw the vehicle pulling up, and they had been washing their clothes and having their bath, and they come out of the canal running, chasing the vehicle, completely naked, waiting for their pocket Bible, because we promised we would give them a Bible, one of these talking Jesus. And so I had to stop the truck, get out as she's dancing, saying, "Where's mine? Where's mine?" And we had to give her pocket Jesus, and said, "Okay, we have to take a picture, but you need to put something on." So she got something on, and we took a picture of her. But I said to the church, I said, how many of you so excited to get a Bible that you'd run out of the shower to get your first Bible without worrying about whether you're dressed or not? But so the Galcom Mega Voice has been incredible ministry opportunity for so many people. It's not just the Fulani, it's the Hausa, it's the Tiv. I work with 11 languages. Ken would know how many languages we're trying to work with and trying to add a couple more. But it's been an incredible opportunity to bring the message of the Bible to people in their language. And they love it. They're chasing us forward all the time. Matter of fact, there was a video put up this summer from a mom in the north who was talking about the Galcom Talking Bible, the MP3, and how ingenious these Christians are putting it on this electronic device. They're deceiving us, and all that. And it was showing the Galcom. It has a Galcom on this video of the Talking Bible and how they are so far behind with the Quran. They don't have the Quran on something like this. And our people are listening to this too much. They're all, it's going on. So, and they just started crying how much he was literally in tears about what we'd be using this device to get the Bible to their people, and they can't stop it. They're listening to it. So he's pleading his people not to listen to it. But so we know that the Galcom MP3 is getting all over Nigeria, and it's been an incredible device. And now that means they're aware of it. So there may be something later on that they're going to try and, those radicals are going to try and do to get this thing not to go out there. But as long as God is involved, I think we're going to continue to be able to use these Talking Bibles. So one thing I didn't mention was we have a local radio station, 97.1. It's not Christian only, but it is a lot of Christian content comes out of it. It's a state radio. And so the state radio, I work a lot with the state radio. I was involved with Tim a number of years ago when I first came. It wasn't working. The radio station wasn't working. The government hadn't done anything in 12 years, but they were paying their employees to sit under a mango tree. And so when I came for a visit, I said, well, where's the radio? I wrote a letter to the governor that Tim needed permission that we could fix the radio station. And the governor denied it. The next year I came back full time. They already had got all the equipment from Halifax onto Canada to put an FM station in. It was no longer AM. They were putting an FM in. And so today we have an FM station in Egby. So that broadcasts into 9 states in Nigeria here. And I'm close to one of the broadcasters and actually the manager now. So they just got a generator. I was able to get some cable for them to hook up the generator to have power. So they're giving me airtime at half price to anything I want to do. So, or even the hospital just got half price airtime for doing broadcasting. And Ben Schroeder, who some of you know, has also worked with the Fulani here in Egby. He works actually in Isanlu. So he has a station there he's setting up. So he has a Fulani broadcast he does every week, every Saturday. And so we're now looking at the radio with the Talking Bible, Fulani. So I've got 50 of them that I'm getting ready to distribute to see how well the radio works with the Talking Bible on it too. So I've got them here. I haven't yet started distributing them because our programming is going to really pick up on Saturdays a lot and Wednesdays. So that's another way in which Galcom has been involved in using the radio station that's already here with the device that I can hand out to people and so they can hear it. The Yoruba love it. I mean, I had a few done with Yoruba. They're using them all the time. So let me just, you know it. I got a blue one, you know it. So anyways, there's the one, and the Yoruba have enjoyed it. I had about 20 of the Yoruba, and they went out pretty quick. But the Fulani haven't been as quick because we haven't got the broadcasting in for full day yet enough. So we're looking to get some more airtime, and they would love to listen to Christian preaching if it was appropriate Christian preaching, but we just need content. So that's another way in which we're involved in the ministry here to reach, because it goes to the bush. The bush is not limited with airways, so it goes to.
Does SIM have a compound there? Do you live together with other SIM people? How many other SIM missionaries are there in the area that you're in? So
Lenora could be able to tell you that. Yes, we have a rather large compound, 32 acres for the hospital. And then we have the Titcomb College compound, which is across the road, which is even bigger. but we don't have any missionaries on the Titcomb compound. And there is Ben Schroeder from Toronto is on the compound with Martha and I. And then we have another family from Cambridge, the Dumases. Let's see, Calvin and Allison Dumas with their 4 children are here for a year, and he's doing the construction of the hospital and nursing school. And that's our SIM missionaries. We don't have a whole lot of SIM missionaries, and that brings a little bit of a sore spot, Shelley. SIM is focused in the north. They really want people in Kano, in Petiscum, and all these northern places, Joss. And so when it comes to Egby, they're not really trying to bring people to Egby. But if people want to go to Egby, they won't stop them. So it's been mostly my work getting people here at the hospital.
Okay, I noticed that you had a question.
Yeah, I did, Rick. So you were saying that the Fulani are quite friendly. No, Fulani. I'm sorry. The Fulani are quite open to the missionaries and that kind of thing, and the imams are not, and are really warning against you. How does that work for you guys? Do you guys ever feel like you're in any physical danger when you go out into the bush?
So the Fulani in our region are warming up to us. The Fulani in the north are not so warming up, and the Fulani in other regions are not. So yes, it can be a difficult situation working with specifically the Fulani. Not all the imams are unfriendly. The imam was the one asked me to be a chief at the cow market. So he gave me his phone number, and he can speak English fairly well. So, but there's an imam where we were doing the school, he plugged our borehole. It cost me about $1,500, and it's no longer any good because he filled it up with rocks and that for the school. So that imam, which they know, and people say stay away from him, he's not a nice fella to the Christian work or the school. But he's been sort of rejected and pushed back a bit to leave it alone. I was going to say, with Hausa people, with Muslim people, they know there's judgment and they know there's paradise, but they don't know if they ever are good enough, or they have to, whether God, weighs them out and whether he knows they're good enough. So I'm actually starting a study, self-teaching myself, plus my guys. I'm just getting this book study on working with Islamic people. And it's been incredible, some of the material that's here in Nigeria to use. And what's been interesting is that the Quran speaks of Jesus much more than Muhammad. And the Quran also says Jesus is coming back to judge everyone. So those who read the Quran well and not interpret it wrong know that Jesus is coming back to judge everyone. So that's a point for me in which to speak to those intelligent Islamic people who know the Quran, that this is what it says. So how do you want Jesus to judge you? Because the Bible tells us that, that accepting Christ, and then, he will accept you. And so, plus there's other things too. The Quran also speaks of the Spirit. The Bible says, I'm sending you, a comforter. And so the Islamic people say, well, that's Muhammad. He's the comforter. The Bible says you're sending the comforter. He's the last prophet. It says, no. Even in the Quran, it speaks of the Spirit. That the Bible speaks that God is sending the Spirit to us, not another human being, not another flesh. And so we are having these kind of conversations with them, which is really bringing us closer, not arguing, but actually closer to them, because they're hearing the truth of their Quran as well as the truth of the Bible.
Well, those are great opportunities to get to be able to share, and using other methods, right? Just talking from the Quran.
So thank you, everyone, just for your prayers. I know you guys pray regularly. Thank you for your hands, the work that you do at the office and preparing all of this. And your newsletters are wonderful, your calendars, all of those items that you send out. I love being a part of the team. It's just wonderful, the ministry. And it's just been incredible what God is using this medium to be able to get the message of the gospel out to people who can't read or write. There's stories that could go on. People who can't see, people because they're so old they can't see anymore. But it just goes on. Even my surgeon here, I gave him one in French because he's from Cameroon. And so he just enjoys listening to the Bible as before he sleeps. He can hear more, listen more than reading it. He falls asleep faster if he's just reading it, but when he's listening to it, he's actually engaged in it a lot more. So everyone is enjoying just this medium to get the word out, the gospel message out, the Bible. So thank you so much, and continue as God allows you to continue. And we appreciate your prayers for sure.
Thank you for letting us be part of, thank you for coming, and thank you for letting us be part of what you're doing there as well. It's a privilege.